Good Monday morning to you. Welcome into SimWorld today on this Monday, April 15th, Conference Championship Monday in SimWorld U and the end of the SWBA regular season. I'm Marsh, joined this morning, as I am every Monday morning, by B-Ron. B-Ron, good morning, and how are you?
Doing all right, Marsh. Doing all right. Good to be here with you. I got a fresh cup for Monday. Good way to start with the week. Let's jump right into it, man. Let's do it.
Fresh Cup of Monday. SWBA regular season wraps up. That means our seeding is finalized. Boston, of course, remaining the number one seed in the East. Oklahoma City is going to be our number one seed out West. Any big surprises from you, B-Ron, in the regular season's final day?
So, I honestly sticking with Oklahoma City. The fact that they won that game against Dallas by the margin that they did, to me, is kind of crazy. I don't. It's final game of the season, and you have a lot on the line. For certain teams, again, Thunder, there were two other teams tied with them for first place.
Denver and
In
Minnesota.
thank you, thank you, Minnesota. So for OKC to come out and play like they did against Dallas in that last game of the season was very surprising to me to see them put up the amount of points they did and hold Dallas to under 100 points, especially in the modern NBA. And we're seeing both teams getting over 100 points most games these days.
Well, I think that's probably what there was a lot of this going on yesterday. A lot of a situation of teams playing for something or playing for absolutely nothing. And in the case of Dallas, they had literally nothing to play for. They were going to be locked into that 4-5 matchup with the Clippers. So honestly, resting makes perfect sense for why you'd only see 86 points and Brandon Williams being the leading scorer for Dallas. At the same time, though, there were games that meant a heck of a whole lot to teams like, let's say, New Orleans, who hosted Los Angeles with a chance to get the 6th seed, a win there, and they have an ability, to avoid the play-in altogether. Instead, they get walloped 124-108, and then the Lakers and the Pelicans are going to run this back tomorrow night. That, to me, was the surprising lines, was some of these teams that had a heck of a whole lot to play for. And they choosing either to not show up or, in the case of the Cleveland Cavaliers, to rest all those guys so they could lose to Charlotte and try to set up a better matchup for them. It's a dangerous game to play. I thought it was I don't think it was intentional by New Orleans, but a big no-show from them. And now they've got to go up against LeBron again in a win-and-get-in situation.
Yeah, and it's gonna be tough, especially when we talk about playoffs and the intensity that comes with these games. We always say it's very difficult to beat a team, twice, 3 times in a season, and to do it again in the playoffs in a series format is going to be a whole other thing. But going against the Lakers with LeBron on that team, again, that's tough, man. That's tough. I think the other thing too for me, Denver, they won their game yesterday too, and it still wasn't enough.
Well, that's just because of
tiebreakers. That's why it worked out that way.
Yep. So Oklahoma City has the tiebreaker to them. They ended both of them with 57 wins. So Oklahoma City will get the winner of the Warriors Kings versus the loser of the Pelicans Lakers winner. So that'll be the 8th seed. If you're look, all roads lead back to the Warriors. But if you're the 8th seed, I actually think the 8th seed's probably a little bit more enticing right now than the 7th seed. Lakers, Pelicans included in that conversation. Kings obviously as well. Now's the time where you start looking at what the matchups are. I'd much rather play Oklahoma City in the first round of the playoffs if I'm any of those teams than rather play Denver. Denver's the best team in basketball. I don't care what the Celtics record says. The Eastern Conference just hasn't been as good. I mean, you look 3, 4, 5 teams in the Western Conference have 50 wins, just 2, and it's the second seed is the Knicks at 50 and 32, and they needed to win 5 straight to get there. The West is a better conference as it has been. It's deeper. So I'd be much more concerned with being the 2 seed, which is now going to be the winner of Pelicans Lakers. But Oklahoma City ends up as the number 1. On the opposite side, Milwaukee gets absolutely steamrolled on the road in Orlando. That drops them to the 3 seed with what might be my most exciting matchup of the first round B-Ron, and it's Milwaukee, Indiana. Two teams that are just defense be damned. This is going to be up and down. They've had some of the best games, and I think this is a really bad spot. Excuse me, hold on. Nearly sneezed. Would have been great on camera. The Bucks have been against the Pacers. Some really high octane games. I think it's a
Yeah.
dangerous spot for Milwaukee in that spot.
Yeah, I do. I think that too, especially with the fact that the Bucks were on a bit of a slide here, coming into the playoffs too. You know, is it going to be Dame time? Is it finally? Are we going to see it? Are we going to see Dame and Giannis really pick it up on a whole other level because they got to go up against Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers team? Like you said, both teams are up and down the court offensive style. I don't know, man. I might have to. I'll save my predictions for tomorrow. I guess I'll leave it there. I don't want to give away too much. So
This is just a flawed Milwaukee team. 18-22. That's the second fewest, tied for the second fewest road wins in the NBA or in the SWBA, behind only the 10th seeded Atlanta Hawks. Orlando also is 18-23. I'm not quite sure how those things are true. Oh, because maybe I don't know. Those numbers should be identical, but anyhow, both of them have 18 wins. This is now you got to go to an Indiana group that's pretty good at home, 26-15, and a team that you've really struggled with. And this is just a matchup that kind of favors both teams equally. And if Giannis isn't back, I think we're looking at potentially another very early disappointing postseason run from the Milwaukee Bucks. Because with or without Giannis, I don't know that there's a lot of trust in the Bucks, but at the same time too that there's a lot of trust in anybody else in the conference.
yeah, exactly. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's 5-7-7, right? Or is it all 7 across the board all the way to the end?
All 7 across the
All
board.
7 across the board. Okay.
This
Okay.
isn't the 90s anymore. Although I'll argue the 5-game first round, I personally prefer. I think it's better, but that's not what we're getting. We are going to get some conference championship games today in SimWorld U. We've got conference championships across the board this morning. That means Selection Monday is coming up this afternoon. Our conference finalists, there's been some shockers. B-Ron, you look in the ACC, where FSU as the number 11 seed has marched all the way there.
Yep.
They're going to get a date with number 1 Miami. In the Big Ten, it's number 8 seeded Nebraska and number 7 seeded Maryland. In the Big East, number 3 seeded Xavier, number 4 Providence. We are not even getting UConn out there. In fact, only 4 number 1 seeds, if you include Houston, have made their conference championship games. Kentucky and Kansas adding to that mix. What are your immediate takeaways from so far conference play, and what are you looking for in the conference finals?
So the conference tournament so far, they've been really, really interesting. There's a lot of teams in here who you this time of year where you see a lot of upsets and things like that, obviously, and that's always fun to see. But for me, some of the things that stick out to me are, obviously Maryland rolling the way that they are right now through the conference tournament, getting to the finals to face Nebraska. Both two, lower seeds in the tournament. You're usually expecting your higher seeds to go across the board. But I think that goes to show how deep some of these conferences are and just how good SimWorld U basketball is and can be. Let's not give the fact that, again, Maryland beat Lorenzo Phenom led Michigan Wolverines there to get to the championship game. So once again, Phenom comes up short, trying to get to a championship game of some kind. So a little bit of heartbreaker there for them. But one of the bigger storylines, I guess, is the fact that John Calipari and Kentucky beat who's going to be his new team next year, Arkansas. DJ Wagner, Glory Tate, Jameson Johnson, all those kids over there in Kentucky are doing really, really good things right now. It's just a matter of, can they finish the job now? Can they beat Tennessee in that
Tennessee
championship game?
For a third time, they're going up against Tennessee, as you get some highlights from some of these guys. DJ Wagner and a stacked Kentucky squad, obviously, with their prep highlights. But yes, I think that was the SEC tournament has been really exciting. I think it's exceptionally deep. Alabama gets upset there in the conference semifinals, but DJ Wagner has been a difference maker on the deepest team in SimWorld Prep. He's not even the best player. Glory Tate is the best player on that roster. Jamison Johnson is right behind him. This is a really, really great team. But meanwhile, Tennessee's hung with them. Some of their most competitive games this season for Kentucky have been against Trey Turner and Henrik Vekic. And if there is a combination that's going to try to slow this group down, it's what Tennessee brings to the table with their size inside, their ability to go toe-to-toe with Jamison Johnson. That really doesn't exist in SimWorld U outside of Virginia, even when it was Tyson Simpson and or Johnny Baldwin on the floor, even if they were never really out there. But that's the only other roster that has
Right,
the
exactly.
size and the skill to go up. So I think this is what we could see again in the national tournament in basketball Bedlam. This is a very real chance we see this for a fourth time. They've done it two times already. Kentucky is 2-0 in it. It's been a thrill to watch it. But to put that out there, the Big Ten, we talk about Maryland as well. Cooper Kingy Cross is putting a legacy mark out there for himself. He had an incredible run in SimWorld Prep. He is doing incredible things here. You can look and be like, wow, look at all these upsets in the Big Ten. Keep in mind, Rutgers was the number 1 seed, and that should tell you how deep this conference was. That Maryland, Nebraska, Freddie Stonewall in Nebraska. Excuse me, not Freddie Stonewall. Yeah, Freddie Stonewall, Mackenzie Mbako. These are really good teams. And Freddie Stonewall, I beg your pardon, he is in Houston, not in Indiana. But Mackenzie Mbako leading that Indiana squad. This is a really good basketball team. So there's not a lack of talent in the Big Ten. That doesn't discredit Cooper King Cross's run. I think it makes it more impressive. Let's wrap up with some SimWorld Prep talk. Ethan Lederman Jr. named SimWorld Prep Player of the Week. He has been on a tear, and I think this is a perfect come up for a guy that everything I've ever heard about him has been his insane work ethic, constantly in the gym, and it's starting to pay off now for a SimWorld Africa team that lost what many probably would have expected to be their best player in Pierre Dupont, and it just simply has not happened.
Yeah, and this is a story, I think, of perseverance and kind of overcoming your adversity, because Ethan Lederman didn't have the greatest start here in SimWorld Prep. First season, last season was with Showtime, played behind Bronny and Bryce James and all this going on over there, and he wasn't really happy over there. Numerous times, talk about his playing time and that kind of thing. And I was always like, well, you decided to go there where, unfortunately you're playing behind Bronny and Bryce, so you kind of expect to not get a lot of minutes as well of that. But turning it around, making the decision to go to SimWorld Africa, and play really well there for them this season. In the last 2 games where he won Player of the Week this past week, he had 18 points in the Showtime win. He also had 5 assists in that game as well, led the team in assists and points. And then in the Indy Stripes game, that was when he exploded for his huge day. 26 points for Lederman and two assists, 2 rebounds in that game as well. And man, hard work's paid off for Lederman for sure.
I think this is the continuation, and not to pull the attention away from Ethan Lederman because he's been phenomenal, but this is a continuation of the proof point of why some guys are leaving these stacked rosters and saying, I need a chance to showcase who I am. Kevon Jackson, Suno Chapa, Arthur Lattimore, in that he was getting a chance to be the focal point in Cascadia, but to go to a program where he can continue to be the number 1 guy. That all matters, and I think it's important for guys at this stage, and I think we've seen some of the failures of that in some instances with other guys like De'Aaron Cruz, like Royce Anderson, who haven't really flourished as the number 1 guy, but this is a great example of betting on themselves and then getting into opportunities that allow them to showcase their skill set, and I think that could be a positive, but it can also be a positive if there is failure, because then there's a more realistic expectation of their future. Okay, this is what we know he can do as a number 1. Maybe that's too much, but that doesn't make the basketball player any worse than who he is. And I think in the
Right.
right situation, guys can flourish. But this is another example. We're going to continue to see guys on stacked rosters say, look, I need to go somewhere else where I can be more central to our offense. Let me be a little bit bigger role and let me see what I can do. And those four guys have all flourished. And I'm sure I'm missing somebody within that list that has been exceptional as well. That is our show. We've got SimWorld U conference championship games again. That is tipping off at about 8:30, 9 a.m. Eastern. So those results should be in mid-morning. And then basketball Bedlam rankings and the brackets and the regions will be released this afternoon for what should be an exceptional lead up. And then first round of hoops starts on Monday. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about that, set up some of the SWBA playoffs as the play-in begins tomorrow night with Western Conference games as well. Thank you to B-Ron. Thanks for our production team. Thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on SimWorld TV, where it's the only place you can see the game, be the game.